to be delivered by our representative of our head of state, His Excellency, the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen. The throne speech this year is titled Building Forward, Stronger Together. And that title gives you an idea of what to expect from the content of the throne speech. Also, after the throne speech in the afternoon session, there will be the tabling of the estimate of expenditure for the 2021-2022 year, and that will be done by our Finance Minister, Dr. Nigel Clark. So the estimate of expenditure is essentially the government's budget for the year, detailing how much will be spent and what will be spent, on. So we're looking forward to all of that today. The regular ceremony will include a lot of that this morning, and also the throne speech leading in to the estimate of expenditure here in the afternoon. Again, thank you for joining us, and we hope you'll find our staging of the opening of Parliament here well spent.
Thanks, Theo. Now, as I said before, this year's ceremonial opening of Parliament will look and feel a little different from previous years as a result of COVID-19. The country has been experiencing a surge in recent times, and so safety protocols are definitely in place. There's a strong observance of social distancing, and a limit on public gatherings. Members of the public have been asked to stay away. So the COVID-19 protocols have definitely affected the throngs of political supporters who would usually line Duke Street decked out in their party colors and who would have been cheering on their members of Parliament. There's also been a significant reduction in the number of invited guests to the ceremonial opening of Parliament. So unlike years past, the guest list has been shaved down from 175 persons to 6, well below the 10-person public gathering limit announced by Prime Minister Andrew Holness recently. The number of parliamentarians attending today's ceremony has been reduced from 84 to 59. The parliamentarians will perform the traditional march to Gordon House, but this time it will be in COVID style. So they will approach in single file and perform the necessary sanitization before entering the building. Spouses of parliamentarians will be represented by Sandra Golding, wife of Leader of the Opposition Mark Golding, Rose Tavares Finson, who is married to President of the Senate Tom Tavares Finson, and Sherbert Philibert, husband to House Speaker Marissa Dalrymple Philibert. Representing the diplomatic corps is Brazil's ambassador to Jamaica, His Excellency Carlos Alberto Michelson Den Hartog. The Honorable Stedman Fuller is expected to be here on behalf of the custodies, while Senator Delroy Williams, who is also Mayor of Kingston, is representing the island's mayors.
Yes, and Lorraine, I just want to go back to your observation about the guest list and the gathering limit. Now, over the years, there's usually this festive atmosphere here. Children, teachers from nearby schools, they're waving, standing on tiptoes, hoping to get a glimpse of the country's leaders. And many times we have even seen people hugging and shaking hands. Not so this year. None of that will be happening this year. As you mentioned, the guest list has been significantly chopped with limited seating inside Gordon House, as we will see. Space had to be made to accommodate social distancing. The good news is that though you are not here, though you cannot be here, you can still enjoy this ceremony safely, virtually. And we hope that as you've joined us on one of the many platforms which we are broadcasting on, that you will also share so that many others can join us as you enjoy the happenings of today. In the meantime, right now, we are looking at the Guard of Honor, which is formed to receive the Governor General. And the Governor General is in his role as the representative of the Queen, who remains Jamaica's head of state. This too, as you can see, if you're a regular to the opening of Parliament, is much less than we usually have, a smaller version, and it's at least a half the size of previous years, and our soldiers are appropriately socially distant.
That they are, Theodore. Now, many of Jamaica's traditions are heavily derived from those of the British parliamentary system, and this is one of them. So though this year's event is COVID style, a lot of the tradition that we usually see in the past years, we will definitely observe them again this year. The roots of the ceremonial opening of Parliament, as we know it today, can be found in the 1962 parliamentary sitting, that marked the birth of independent Jamaica. So the first ever sitting of Parliament of Independent Jamaica. Now back then, Her Royal Highness Princess Margaret represented Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and Princess Margaret delivered independent Jamaica's first throne speech. It's 59 years later, and the tradition continues. As we await the arrival of the dignitaries, the JDF streetliners have marched into their positions. The Guard of Honor, as you said, Theodore, they are also in their position.
So here comes the march. Look at the colors. This has always been one of my personal favorite parts. The pomp and the ceremony that accompanies this event. So the streetliners are marching into place. It's a windy day, but it's also a bright and clear day, and we're happy for that. They are marching into place to receive the dignitaries, starting with Police Major General Anthony Anderson, and then the Police Commissioner's arrival will be followed by that of the Chief Defense Staff, Major General Rocky Mead. And then, at that point, we will begin getting our the head of state, our government, they will be arriving. But first, the Guard of Honor must be in place and must be inspected.
Today's guard commander is Major Champliny Henry. The subaltern of the guard is Lieutenant Adrian Thorpe.
It's interesting how things continue but also change. Lorraine, last year we looked and we were watching the same color party, and they weren't in masks.
Yep, that's what was definitely missing last year. That's
Right.
here now.
And
Masks are almost like given.
indeed, and you realize that the officer here who is giving the orders, he is amplified. He has a microphone. That
Right.
wasn't in place last year either.
Makes a lot of sense.
Indeed, the mask does muffle a little bit, but we are doing our best to continue the traditions of the state while ensuring that we keep our citizens healthy and safe, which is part of the reason why you're watching this morning from the safety of your home. And again, we thank you for joining us.
And we ask you to share the stream with your family members and friends so they too can be a part of this historic national occasion. We're seeing female members of the Guard of Honor, Theodore. That's something we can say has been implemented in recent years as well. And I believe members of the Jamaican National Service Corps would be part of the this year's Guard of Honor as they were last year. Major Champlini Henry ensuring that his Guard of Honor is in formation and is in impeccable order. Later on, they will be inspected by the Governor General.
But before the Governor General arrives, we expect that the special invited guests, all 6 of them, will be arriving first. They are required to be seated before the Governor General arrives. I believe we've mentioned this already, but there's an order and a process to this ceremony. So the specially invited guests arrive first, and they're seated inside. And next, we will have the Commissioner of Police, Major General Anthony Anderson, who he will arrive next. And then following him will be the Chief of Defense Staff, who will do that first look over,
right.
inspection of the Guard of Honor. And it is then that the dignitaries, the members of the Senate, members of the government will arrive. They'll head inside, single file, socially distant. And finally, our Governor General, who starts the entire ceremony, he will arrive.
He will arrive last, as usual. Now, Theo, normally we would have the president of the Jamaica Council of Churches, the Reverend Newton Dixon, with us inside Gordon House today. But as with most functions in this pandemic, he will actually be joining us virtually, like thousands of Jamaicans are doing right now. Now, I wanted to go back to the Guard of Honor, Theodore. They are placed in a specific formation. There's the right half with the guard commander that stands to the front. Then in the center with the color party, those are people with what looks like flags. Those are actually called colors. Then to the left are the others with the subaltern of the guard. There you can see the color party holding the colors. Now the subaltern of the guard is Lieutenant Adrian Thorpe. And there are some other members who are ensuring that the Guard of Honor is firmly in place. There is the right guide, Warrant Officer Class 2, Carl Bird. The left guide, Staff Sergeant Samuel Stewart. The conducting warrant is Warrant Officer Class 2, Wayne Morris. On screen now, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith and Senator Don Webby.
Yes, heading into the building. And Lorraine, again, differences. Brian Sykes, our Chief Justice, heading in. Differences again.
Wearing his 2 masks as recommended by the CDC recently.
And look here. At first, we usually had this group walking towards Parliament. But now they're coming in single file. Everyone is stopping at the door, sanitizing their hands. They're all masked. Novel times.
Right, and these are our dignitaries who usually arrive first and are seated inside the chambers. Then the members of Parliament. We're expecting the members of Parliament who will come in shortly after. and just before the arrival of the Governor General.
Right up front and center, Lorraine, we're seeing one of the colors you were mentioning. And there's one in particular that I know we'll want to talk about that we will see shortly when the inspection is occurring.
I believe this is the color of the 2JR, 2nd Battalion Jamaica Regiment. And the Guard of Honor is mounted by the 2nd Battalion Jamaica Regiment of the Jamaica Defense Force. And we saw that the dignitaries, as they arrived, they ensured that they did what everybody is doing nowadays: sanitize before you head inside, have your temperature checked before you head inside. And Parliament actually put in more sanitizing stations in preparation for this year's event.
Yes.
We are seeing one on either side. We're seeing a temperature machine just inside, as well as persons with handheld thermometers. Sanitization station on either side. There's one in the center as well.
Indeed. Indeed. We're looking back at the Guard of Honor, Lorraine, and I just wanted to mention a few other names. You had mentioned the right guy, the left guy, the
Right.
conducting warrant. I wanted to point out we heard some great music. The director of music this morning is Lieutenant Raphael Salazar. The bandmaster is Warrant Officer First Class Paul Johnson, and the drum major was Staff Sergeant Ramoy Dawkins. The JDF has spent many hours rehearsing for this occasion until they get it just right. And we salute them for their consistency.
We certainly do.
Our first arrivals, Lorraine.
Arriving first is the Commissioner of Police. I'm sorry. On screen now is the Chief of Defense Staff. Major General Rocky Mead.
And he is heading to the podium. No,
I'm
I
sorry,
mentioned-
Theodore. That should be Lieutenant General
Right.
Rocky Mead.
Yes. And I also mentioned that he's heading to the podium. Now, you realize that everything has its own name. So this is the saluting dais. And the Chief of Defense Staff will receive a sword salute, during which he will glance over, having a quick look at his troops to ensure that everything is in place and ready to receive the Governor General. And now he leaves the saluting dais and he will head inside the building. Lorraine, I'm pointing out all the subtle differences that we may notice this morning. We saw Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith arrive and other senators
Right,
as
the
well.
senators.
Today's ceremonial opening is a joint sitting of both houses of Parliament. Usually they're not all together.
Lion, come as well, come as well. No, Taylor. Both of you, both of you. He's still down. The two speech. Come. You know, some of the
Lieutenant General Rocky Ricardo Meade. He is the third Chief of Defense Staff of the Jamaica Defense Force, and he's been serving since December 2016. Having a chat there with, I believe, the guard commander, ensuring that everything is in place for the inspection by the Governor General, His Excellency, Sir Patrick Allen.
Now,
That's the color that looks like the Jamaican flag, but it's not the Jamaican flag, is it, Theodore?
it is not, and because it isn't the Jamaican flag, some things we will see it do some things that would not happen with the Jamaican flag. But I'm going to reserve that comment until the Governor General gets here.
Right, so that on your screen is the Queen's color. So it's in the design format of the national flag, and it is representing the head of state. The Queen's head of state here in Jamaica is the Governor General. So that's the Queen's color on screen right now.
Indeed. So as both houses of Parliament have gathered, as they always do on the ceremonial opening, the Guard of Honor is here. You also saw a uniform which you may not immediately recognize, lady dressed all in white, and that is Commodore Antoinette Weems Gardner. She was promoted in 2019, and she represents the Coast Guard. So we have several branches of our nation's defense apparatus present here today. And just now we witnessed a few other arrivals. So we're here waiting for the Governor General. The Guard of Honor is in place. They're being adjusted as necessary. And we are waiting.
Theodore, we know there have been persons who've been coming for the ceremonial opening of Parliament religiously. On screen now, President of the Senate, Tom Tavares Finson. We know there are persons who've been coming religiously to just get a glimpse of their Member of Parliament, to cheer them on as they walk Duke Street. But if you were by any chance thinking about that today, we urge you to stay away. Remember, the public is restricted, so we urge you to enjoy the proceedings in the comfort of your home or office. Physical access to the ceremony is restricted.
And we appreciate you helping us out by watching virtually and sharing to as many as you can. In case you didn't catch our start, the theme of the Governor General's throne speech this morning is building forward, stronger together, which should give us a little insight into what the content of the speech will involve. Nothing too surprising there, considering the year that we have had so far, and we look forward to hear the plans and the details of the government, and in the afternoon session to witness the tabling of the estimates of expenditure by the Honorable Dr. Nigel Clark, our Minister of Finance and the Public Service. There was the lady in white that I was mentioning, Commodore Weems Gorman. Have to get it right.
some topics expected in the Governor General's throne speech. Theodore, we can expect COVID-19 to feature front and center, and how
That's
the country
right.
is battling this pandemic. I believe we can expect more about NIDS, the National Identification System, that is to come on stream in short order.
But also, I think we can expect a tone of hope in all the plans. I believe we will hear a strong hope of we will overcome. We will push through this. It's reflected quite clearly in the title, Building Forward. We're stronger together.
Indeed. If you're just joining us and you're wondering how the proceedings will happen today, as we said earlier, unlike years past, the guest list has been shaved down from 175 persons to 6, a huge chop. And this is to ensure that the COVID-19 protocols can be safely observed inside Gordon House. So these are the invited guests we're talking about. So the invited guests, the list of invited guests in years past, you would have had students, you would have had members of the public who would have been privileged to sit inside Gordon House for this important national event. However, due to COVID-19, they, like many of you, will have to tune in to the ceremony virtually.
But Lorraine, even the number of parliamentarians attending the ceremony today has been reduced.
Right.
Usually we'd have about 84, but no, today we have 59. And so we're all adjusting to this new normal.
To the new normal, Theodore, definitely.
Now, there's the Jamaican flag we know and love quite a
Flying
bit.
proudly.
Right, quite a bit different from the Queen's color that you
It is.
pointed out to us, Lorraine. As we look at the flag, in the heart of every Jamaican, I can almost hear the song, Eternal Father, bless our land, guard us with your mighty hand. And even the pledge, which we sing, which we say and sing, lovely songs, lovely words, dedicating Jamaica, one Jamaica under God, but also pointing clearly to our spirit as a Jamaican people, which will be reflected in today's throne speech.
And this bold and proud symbol of our nationhood was first hoisted in 1962 at the National Stadium when Jamaica, August 6, 1962, when Jamaica gained independence.
Lorraine, what are we seeing here? Are those horses?
Looks like horses to me, Theodore. Mounted troops are making their way into the frame right now.
And that indicates to me that the Governor General is about to arrive.
So mounted escorts accompany the Governor General, mounted troops. The Governor General will receive the royal salute. Governor General, His Excellency Sir Patrick Allen. He is greeted by the Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Rocky Meade.
And the next thing he will do is take to the saluting dais to inspect the troops and receive the salute of honor.
Lieutenant General Meade escorting the Governor General to the red carpet. Governor General steps onto the red carpet. Then he will step onto the saluting dais, Theodore, so that he can be seen by all members of the Guard of Honor. He is preparing to receive the royal salute.
And here you go. Why we said that color that looks
There you have it. The Governor General has received the Royal Salute. You will now have a look at the Guard of Honor. Now, Theodore, you wanted to say something about that flag that looked like the national flag that was touching the ground.
Right, but I had to pause for the national anthem. Lorraine, we covered this. It is not the flag. It could not be the flag that is touching the ground. Rather, it is the Queen's color. Queen being our representative of state still. Governor General being her representative here this morning.
As the Governor General inspects the Guard of Honor, we're hearing music from the military band in the background. Director of Music at the Jamaica Defense Force is Rafael Salazar, Lieutenant Rafael Salazar. And Lieutenant Rafael Salazar is supported by Bandmaster Warrant Officer Class 1 Paul Johnson. The drum major is Staff Sergeant Ramoy Dawkins. After inspecting the Guard of Honor, the Governor General will receive the second Royal Salute. And after this, he will be escorted into the Chamber of Parliament, where sittings of both houses of Parliament are held. Now we are expected to get a new Parliament building. Ground is expected to be broken for the construction of this new Parliament building at the National Heroes Park. The winning design out of many, one people. Now, this building as we know it, George William Gordon House, on October 26, 1960, sittings of Parliament was transferred here from Headquarters House. So this was built in 1960. Time now for the second Royal Salute.
And the second Royal Salute has been received. For a time, Lorraine, Parliament did not meet in this building during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic.
That's right, Theodore. They were meeting at the Jamaica Conference Center, which is managed by the Urban Development Corporation, UDC. UDC is also leading the charge for the creation or the building of a new House of Parliament on the grounds of the National Heroes Circle. Now, if you want to keep up with what's happening with the Houses of Parliament competition, well, it's not a competition anymore. The winning design out of many was selected. On screen now, members of the government led by Prime Minister the Most Honorable Andrew Holness are making their way to the Parliament building. Now, quickly, the social media accounts of the Parliament. Facebook, you can follow them on Facebook at Jamaica Parliament, Instagram at Parliament Jamaica. So you can keep up with what's happening as it relates to the new Parliament building, as well as the sittings inside the existing Gordon House.
Masks are in place, but the usual dress up, the pomp of attire is present.
It is definitely present.
Here, members of the government are making their way to the Parliament building.
Government members will do the necessary sanitization as they prepare to make their way inside the chamber.
We're seeing several new members of Parliament joining us this year. I believe we saw Daniel Lawrence.
State Minister for Education, Youth and Information, Robert Morgan. Dr. Michelle Charles making her way inside Gordon House.
We have Juliet Cuthbert-Flynn, Anne-Marie Vaz.
Karencia Morrison, first-time member of Parliament, resplendent in her African print. I'm singling her out, Theodore. She is a past student of the St. Jago High School on Monk Street, Spanish Town.
All right, Lorraine.
And these are actually the government members of Parliament who will be sitting inside Gordon House for the ceremonial opening of Parliament today. Another first-time Member of Parliament, Robert Big Rob Miller, making his way inside the chamber.
Parliament resumed meeting at Gardner House on December 1 last year after being dissolved in August. Meetings were being held, as we mentioned, at the Jamaica Conference Center. The building, however, underwent a COVID-compliant facelift, the installation of screens, the sanitization stations, and now it is in use again.
Our gracious and holy God, we praise and glorify you for your goodness and loving kindness. You are God alone, and all of creation owes allegiance to you. We thank you for the gift of governance and this Parliament as the representation of its highest traditions. Once again, the members of this sacred house gather to set the course of the new parliamentary year. Yet, Lord, our nation continues to be challenged. The COVID-19 pandemic, the scourges of crime and violence, the need for the protection of the least among us, and other concerns for economic well-being and human dignity weigh heavily on these leaders of our people. So we pray once again that these leaders be given vision, lest we perish. Grant them knowledge from above. May they labor in full exertion of their mental, physical, and spiritual capacities in the relentless search for justice, truth, equity, fairness, peace, and love. Holy God, I pray that you would preoccupy their minds with the concerns of this nation, its progress and prosperity. Strengthen them to resist the temptations to place personal and partisan political interests over the demands for national transformation. May each member of this chamber of the House of Parliament enter and deliberate in it with utmost reverence for you, respect for fellow members and the nation's interest. May they work together under one unified cause, a better Jamaica, and in so doing, may they be exemplars of decency and dignity. Bless the royal family, our Governor General, our Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, and all the elected and appointed representatives and members of this House, including the members of staff. Bless them with knowledge, wisdom, courage, and good health. Bless their families and keep them safe. So, loving Lord, you have called us to righteous living, the pursuit of peace and justice, and the care of the neighbor. You have inspired our understanding of your sovereign rule over the earth, your loyal love towards us, and your care for creation. May these truths guide the thoughts, words, and deeds of the members of this Parliament, so that from their labor and example, Jamaica may increase in beauty, fellowship, and prosperity, and play her part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race. Amen. May we together pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. May we receive the blessing. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift the light of his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.
Please be seated.
A proclamation by His Excellency the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Linton Allen, Member of the Order of the Nation, Knight Grand Cross of the Most Distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George, Commander of the Order of Distinction, Knight of Grace and Most Venerable Order of the Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem, Governor General of Jamaica. Whereas it is provided by subsection 1 of section 63 of the Constitution of Jamaica that each session of Parliament of Jamaica shall be held at such place and shall commence at such time as the Governor General may by proclamation appoint. And whereas it is expedient that a session of the Parliament of Jamaica should be held at such place and commence at such time, I shall hereinafter appear. Now, therefore, I, Patrick Linton Allen, Member of the Order of the Nation, Knight Grand Cross of the Most Distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George, Commander of the Order of Distinction, Knight of Grace of the Most Venerable Order of the Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem, Governor General of Jamaica, in exercise of the power conferred on me by subsection 1 of section 63 of the Constitution of Jamaica, do hereby proclaim and make known that a session of the Parliament of Jamaica shall be held at George William Gordon House in the parish of Kingston, commencing at 11 a.m. on the 18th day of February 2021, given under my hand and the broad seal of Jamaica at King's House, this 12th day of February in the year of our Lord, 2021, and the 70th year of the reign of Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II. God save the Queen.
Mr. President, and members of the Senate, Madam Speaker, and members of the House of Representatives, I am pleased to present the throne speech representing my government's plans and programs for the 2021-2022 parliamentary year under the theme, Building Forward, Stronger Together. Honorable members, we're here today during an unprecedented time which is emerging as a new normal in our consciousness. We have mounted a largely successful and intense program to manage the COVID-19 pandemic and swiftly adapt to a new way of life. Wearing of masks has evolved from a practice once essential only for a few to being universally mandated. Although 2020 did not unfold in a way we would have anticipated at the beginning, it has taught us more than anything else, that life is precious, is fleeting, and must be treasured. For all those who have lost loved ones, we express our deepest condolences. Prior to the pandemic, we had forecasted 1.2% growth for the fiscal year 2020 and 2021. The past financial year has shown us the need for strength and resilience. We have ensured that we have used a risk-based management approach that is evidence-based, measured situationally appropriate, and proportionate. We have developed strategies for coping and recovering. In April 2020, the Prime Minister appointed COVID-19 Economic Recovery Task Force, a multi-sectoral task force to help chart Jamaica's economic recovery from the fallout and devastation caused by COVID-19 pandemic. The recommendations of the task force will be our guide to emerging stronger and better than before. Last year, we committed to making this our decade of growth. Notwithstanding setbacks caused by the pandemic, we must recommit to our 2030 vision and summon our energies, talents, and resources as we march forward, to achieve it. We must never lose focus on creating a safer and more caring society where all can achieve their true potential. We must embrace reform with ambition. Our goal cannot simply be to return Jamaica to our pre-COVID-19 reality. We must go beyond this and emerge economically and socially stronger by addressing fundamental gaps that have been exposed and exploiting opportunities that arise. The COVID-19 Economic Recovery Task Force recommended several policies and initiatives that will guide our recovery effort, including 1, greater focus and shift of capital expenditure towards activities that maximize local value add. 2, accelerate capital investment in public health capacity to serve the daily healthcare needs of the population and respond to crisis, thereby ensuring our resilience. Accelerated investment in the public education infrastructure and skills training with greater focus on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And fourthly, increased public investment in technology and broadband connectivity, expansion of the social safety net, while at the same time ensuring its efficiency and transparency. Reconfiguration and diversification of the Jamaican economy by supporting the creation of new industries and strengthening local linkages. Honorable members, we must not only rebuild what we have lost. Every Jamaican, every entrepreneur, every civil servant, every business and every government agency must build forward stronger together. Honorable members, the COVID-19 pandemic reinforced the critical importance of unique identification for a digital society which better serves all our citizens. The government tabled a new National Identification and Registration Bill, which is currently being reviewed by a joint select committee of Parliament. We have begun the process of transforming the Registrar General's Department, RGD, into the National Identification and Registration Authority, the NIRA, and the Digital Birth Certificate Solution, which is approximately 90% complete. This will be launched in the coming financial year. Honorable members, resorting to violence cannot be the chosen means by which we as a people resolve our conflicts. The National Commission on Violence Prevention, NCVP, has been mandated to formulate an evidence-based 10-year national strategic plan to guide legislation, public education, and civil society mobilization against violence and for a gentler, more loving society. The government has established the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission to carry out a comprehensive review of all levels of the public education system, and consultations with stakeholders and international partners are far advanced. The Commission's findings and proposed recommendations will be presented for review in the first quarter of the coming financial year. The creation of a digital society is a core mission of this administration, and the government must lead by example in the integration of technology that will fundamentally transform its operations and increase efficiency system-wide. An electronic performance monitoring and evaluation system has been implemented and will improve planning, monitoring, and reporting functions of ministries to enable better decision-making. For a suitable regulatory framework within which management of our electricity, telecommunications, water, and sewage services can sufficiently function, the government will be amending the Office of Utilities Regulation, OUR Act, to incorporate new and emerging service sectors into its regulatory mandate, streamline its powers, and harmonize across regulated sectors with specific legislation. This will create a more robust regulatory framework to promote investment expansion in utilities and consumer satisfaction. The government acted proactively to facilitate an appropriate response to address the health and economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. The government mounted an economic policy response that is unprecedented in magnitude and also in impact, including approximately $15 billion in tax cuts and approximately $20 billion for the COVID-19 allocation of resources for employees care program. Not including the billions spent on health expenditures and support of public bodies. The CARE program represented the largest social intervention program in our history. With benefits extending to a wide range of individuals and businesses, with over 500,000 applicants. Approval was obtained from Parliament to suspend the fiscal rules for fiscal year 2020-2021, and the target date for attainment of the debt to GDP target of 60% was deferred by 2 years from fiscal year 2025-26 to 2027-28 to accommodate the impact of the pandemic. We are among only a few countries globally that have been able to maintain debt sustainability throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Our ability to achieve this is directly attributable to the strong base and buffers built from our fiscal discipline over the last several years. Through the worst economic crisis in 100 years, Jamaica has managed to maintain net international reserves in the region of just over $3 billion US. And all this despite the fallout in our foreign exchange earnings. We have also managed to maintain our sovereign debt rating of B+, recently reaffirmed by Standard & Poor's. This reflects confidence in the economy and the government's economic policy direction within the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. The government continues its drive to make payment of taxes and fees more efficient by increasing the online options. At the start of 2021, the Tax Administration of Jamaica, TAJ, began the pilot phase of the Direct Funds Transfer project to allow for immediate update of the customer's record and the convenience of printing an official receipt instead of having to retrieve it from the tax office. In addition, TAJ launched its mobile app for payment of motor vehicle fitness fees, traffic ticket, property tax, and queries. Honorable members, a swift recovery can only occur in a stable macroeconomic environment with a supportive legislative and regulatory framework. Therefore, amendments to the Urban Renewal Tax Relief Act, Financial Administration and Audit Act, Financial Services Commission Act, and Income Tax Relief, Large-Scale Projects and Pioneer Industries Act will be undertaken in the new fiscal year to further create a supportive environment for business and investments. Honorable members, the regulatory framework around special economic zones has now been firmly established, giving the platform for an increase in the number of entities and square footage available for use. The Port Authority of Jamaica continues to make significant investments in the Kingston Logistic Park and construction of the Portmore Informatics Park. This, along with continued improvement in the port community system, is steadily establishing Jamaica as an outsourcing and logistic destination. During this period of economic fallout, the government will use the time wisely to continue planning and designing major infrastructure projects for them to be ready for the post-pandemic rebound. It should be noted that the planning and design phases of government campus and houses of parliament are progressing well. The planned development of the Morant Bay Urban Center is now in the execution phase with cabinet approval for the joint venture agreement. In the western part of the island, important interventions including building of the southern and northern groins, which were aimed at rehabilitating headlands along the Montego Bay waterfront. This was slowed, but will be brought back on track in the 2021-2022 financial year. Works to upgrade the closed harbor beach were completed, and the new facility, Harmony Beach Park, will be officially opened soon. With respect to our roadways, improvement in the ease and movement of people and goods facilitated by previous highway projects continues with the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project. Work is progressing satisfactorily on the two phases of the project, that is, the Harbor View to Port Antonio leg and the tolled section between Maypen and Williamsfield. The government continues to provide a more seamless process in the water works and investment space for faster project implementation to boost development and productivity. During the past year, major upgrade of the water supply system was undertaken for Kingston and St. Andrew, and water supply was commissioned to 5 rural communities that did not previously have water. Proposed legislative changes to the Water Resource Act will assign regulatory functions to the Water Resources Authority and require it to provide technical support in terms of floodplain mapping and flood warning systems development to the Office of the Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management and Planning Authorities. Additionally, with changes to the Flood Water Control Act, the National Works Agency will be required to design the flood control structures and oversee construction as the implementing agency. Honorable members, the government continues to press ahead with efforts towards improving public order and enhancing security. The multifaceted approach taken by the government to include transformative social investment, enhanced security measures, and sustained outlay in the technological capability of the security forces have been effective in contributing to a reduction in serious crimes. Intelligence assessments points to many of the murders and shootings being attributed to gang activity. The government continues to intensify its effort to pursue gangs relentlessly. For the 2021 fiscal year, the government will continue to invest in mobility and technology, including expansion of the National CCTV Surveillance Program to enhance intelligence and forensic capabilities to aid in swift investigation and provision of reliable and legitimate evidence. The government has advanced development of 4 complex priority pieces of legislation which are currently in the draft bill stage. 1, an act to repeal and replace the Firearms Act. 2, the Criminal Administration's Suppression of Criminal Organizations Amendment Act. 3, the Immigration Restrictions Commonwealth Citizens Amendment Act. 4, the Aliens Amendment Act. Additionally, the government will be seeking parliamentary approval for other key policy and legislative measures designed to strengthen our crime-fighting efforts, enhance rehabilitation and reintegration of offenders, and improve public order, including 1, the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency Investigation and Prosecution Procedures Regulations, and 2, amendment to the Corrections Act to modernize the framework governing the operations of the Department of Correctional Services, DCS, and improve care, management, and rehabilitation of offenders. Honorable members, pandemics, health emergencies, and weak health systems not only cost lives, but pose great risks to our sustainable development. The government, in a year which was like no other, continued to focus on enhancing healthcare services delivery. Managing the response to the COVID-19 pandemic requires multi-sectorial collaboration. It is a whole of society approach. Right from the inception of the pandemic, the government developed a range of infection prevention and control protocols for various sectors and settings. A national communication strategy was executed, screening and testing our ports of entry further bolstered the pandemic response. Isolation and quarantine sites were put into operation in public hospitals and private facilities. The government continues to monitor the local and international environment, disseminate its daily COVID-19 situation report, and host regular press briefings. It is projected that we will soon receive our first vaccine shipments through the global COVAX facility. The government continues to explore various supply options, and plans are well in advance for distribution of the vaccines. While COVID-19 has clearly been the focus in 2020, 2021, the government continues to work on initiatives to strengthen the general health, including 1, construction of a 5-bed intensive care unit, ICU, for Mandeville Regional Hospital. 2, expansion of ICU capacity at the Cornwall Regional Hospital, University of the West Indies, Kingston Public, and Victoria Jubilee Hospitals. 3, creation of 4-bed high dependency unit with the space at the Spanish Town Hospital. Construction of 2 facilities, one in the eastern and the other in the western part of the island, to provide additional isolation beds. And 5, increase in the number of trained critical care personnel. Notwithstanding the pandemic, activities directed towards enhanced vector control and prevention and management of non-communicable diseases have continued through interministerial collaboration and private sector partnerships. Priority legislation included the Tobacco Control Bill, which was tabled in Parliament in December 2020 and has been referred to a joint select committee. Additionally, the pandemic has heightened the need for amendments to modernize the Public Health and Quarantine Acts. Honorable members, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a severely disruptive impact on our educational system. We developed the Education in Emergency Initiatives Plan, through which we outlined strategies to manage the crisis, while utilizing technology to enrich and improve educational levels and move towards a fully connected and knowledge-based society has always been a priority. The pandemic has necessitated an acceleration of the government's plans. Efforts have been directed towards providing equitable access for all and ensuring that we equip our students with 21st century skills for the fourth industrial revolution. The government of Jamaica has been providing students on the PATH program with devices to facilitate their connectivity to online classes and launched the Own Your Own Device initiative to provide vouchers valued at $20,000 to parents of 36,000 vulnerable students who are not PATH beneficiaries. We thank our local business community, our diaspora and international partners who continue to contribute generously to the one laptop or tablet per child initiative, which has added 12,000 devices to the education sector, moving us closer to the elimination of the digital divide. Alongside the online modality, the government took steps to ensure no child is left behind and launched a national timetable to guide our students to lessons broadcast on television and aired on radio. Additionally, our teachers were deployed to help those students who could only access learning kits with printed textbooks and worksheets. Following on a successful launch of the Amber Heart Coding Academy, the government will shortly launch a pilot program to introduce our primary and secondary students to coding skills as we seek to develop creators rather than mere users of technology. For the new fiscal year, renewed focus will be on the Jamaica Teaching Council Bill and amendments to the Education Act, while also putting our efforts on, 1, the Children Adoption of Amendment Bill, 2, the Child Care and Protection Amendment Bill, and 3, the Access to Information Act and regulations. Honorable members, it is no surprise that the COVID-19 pandemic has significantly affected the tourism sector. This has manifested in declines in visitor arrivals and expenditure, employment, and revenue. A comprehensive set of COVID-19 tourism health and safety protocols, which were the first to be endorsed by the World Travel and Tourism Council, were developed to enhance health hygiene and safety standards for tourists, employees, and facilities. The the government established the resilient corridors along the north coast and south coast to encourage safe tourism practices through delivery of service that conforms to a rigorous set of tourism, health, and safety protocols. The Jamaica Tourist Board implemented innovative strategies geared towards rebuilding confidence in the destination. Among the major initiatives was the Rediscover Jamaica campaign, which encouraged Jamaicans to take advantage of tourism products and attractions through staycation packages. The government is using this slowdown as an opportunity to upgrade our infrastructure and innovate to improve the quality of our product to enable us to rebound strongly when the pandemic abates. Through amendment of the Bath of the Apostle and Milk River Acts, public-private partnerships for the Milk River Hotel and Spa and Bath Fountain Hotel will be sought to enable their development into world-class facilities. By amending the Tourist Board Act, the Travel Agency Act, and their accompanying regulations, the government will modernize the requirements of these acts and strengthen the provisions for enforcement. Honorable members, the past year underscored the need to focus on resilience, innovation, and increased adoption of technology for our food security. The COVID-19 pandemic, coupled with changing rainfall and drought patterns due to the climate change, impacted demand and supply chains. Despite the challenges, growth of 1.8% was achieved in the second quarter, and further growth is projected. The government continues to put programs in place to stimulate increased usage of local products and encourage investments, and provide a $1 billion COVID-19 recovery fund to support the agriculture sector. True leveraging of this sector requires significant investment. Accordingly, the government has since expanded the Production Incentive Program, PIP, to provide contributions to farmers. The ministry has also actively pursued development of the fisheries subsector through a relief program valued at $226 million for the provision of critical input. The recently launched AgriCare program will provide access to medical and life insurance. We also entered into a landmark partnership with the International Labour Organization, the ILO, to help informal operators in the agriculture and fisheries sectors to become formalized. In the coming financial year, the government proposes to, 1, repeal the Plants Quarantine Act to be replaced by the Plants Health Act. 2, repeal the Animals Disease and Importation Act to be replaced by the Animal Health Act. And thirdly, amend the Predial Larceny Prevention Act. The government recognizes its role as an enabler to ensure that businesses not only survive, but grasp opportunities to strengthen value and supply chains. This is especially important with changing consumption patterns. In fiscal year 2020-2021, the government facilitated the full operationalization of the Cannabis Licensing Authority, CLA, to support the local medical cannabis industry. The Small Business Development Center initiative was strengthened as a central and comprehensive source of support for MSMEs through provision of a platform for business development professionals to acquire capacity building opportunities. The manufacturing sector strategy was approved, facilitating implementation of a 5-year plan with the ultimate goal of increasing local manufacturing output and employment by 23% within 5 years. The government supported enactment of critical legislation such as 1. The Patent and Designs Act, 2. The Trade Sale of Goods during the period of Declaration of Disaster Area Order, 3. The Insolvency Standard for Determination Excess Income Notice, and 4. The Copyright Extension of Transitional Period Order. The bills to be tabled during the 2021-2022 fiscal year include 1. The Companies Amendment Bill, 2. The National Compliance and Regulatory Authority Bill, and 3. The Custom Duties, Dumping and Subsidies Bill. The government is at the forefront of efforts to expand broadband internet penetration and ultimately to achieve universal internet access through the continued provision of public Wi-Fi hotspots. The government is also committed to driving innovation through research and development. Through the Scientific Research Council, a number of new product development ideas have been commercialized into varying products such as jams, seasonings, drinks, and sauces. We are on a mission to secure Jamaica's energy future through diversification and the provision of alternative, sustainable, and environmentally friendly sources. Jamaica is now a regional leader in renewable energy, boasting some of the largest solar and wind facilities. eGov Jamaica Limited developed both the online application We Care for supporting the government's CARE program and Own Your Own Device, OYOD, online application for non-path beneficiaries to receive grant assistance for computer equipment. Legislative priorities will include 1, the implementation of the Data Protection Act, the promulgation of data protection regulations, and 3, drafting of regulations under the Telecommunications Act. Additionally, the government plans to enact the Electricity Amendment Indemnification and Validation Act, the Petroleum Downstream Activities Act, the Petroleum Amendment Act, the Electric Power Wheeling and Net Billing Regulations, and 4, a review of the Cybercrimes Act. Inclusion of a ministry with special focus on urban renewal combined with housing, environment, and climate change is indeed timely. It is a significant dynamic to drive inclusive growth and position us to better respond to challenges. Proliferation of informal settlements has posed significant social, economic, and environmental challenges for Jamaica, a situation which necessitates urgent intervention through focused policy measures and remedial actions. Work progressed on development of a national squatter management policy and implementation plan, which will, among other things, guide a coordinated program to gradually reduce and eventually eliminate squatting and define the attendant legislative, regulatory, and institutional framework within which it will operate. The real estate industry has long been recognized as a primary driver of economic activity, accounting for a significant portion of individual and business wealth. More Jamaicans realize their dream of owning a home as the government continues to fulfill its mandate of providing affordable solutions. Additionally, units were handed over under the National Housing Program, the National Social Housing Program. Completion of the amendments to the Real Estate Dealers and Developers Act has been prioritized. This will give effect to the merger of the Real Estate Board, Commission of Strata Corporations, and the Timeshare Registrar into the Real Estate Authority of Jamaica. It will also address new dynamics of the industry that are not currently legislated, offer greater protection to purchasers, and update existing fines for breaches. Jamaica has a wide cross-section of residential and commercial developments that have shared property which are not covered under the Registration Strata Titles Act because they are not strata properties. Following extensive research, legislation is being developed to govern the operations of such communities. The Real Estate Authority of Jamaica will have oversight responsibility. Jamaica remains steadfast on the climate resilience and sustainable development agenda and has submitted its revised nationally determined contribution to the Paris Agreement in June 2020. And that is committing the country to more stringent targets. In 2021, Jamaica will pilot an investment prioritization tool that will integrate climate change in infrastructure development. This tool will identify key locations with the highest concentration of economic and social value at risk over the next 20 years. Honorable members, despite limitations on regular diplomatic activity, international cooperation remains central to the government's achievement of inclusive and sustainable economic growth. In response to the pandemic, the government secured and coordinated assistance valued at US $12 million from international partners who donated medicines, field hospitals, as well as medical, personal, protective, and emergency response equipment. The government also quickly and effectively engaged its network of missions, honorable consuls, diaspora communities, and bilateral partners to see to the welfare of our nationals who were stranded overseas. Recognizing the importance of our diaspora, the government established new councils for engagement and tabled the National Diaspora Policy. Jamaica's honorary consul network was strengthened not only by refreshing certain posts, but by increasing the network by 20% since 2016. Our efforts in foreign trade and investment were enhanced under the newly launched Economic Diplomacy Program, which, in collaboration with JAMPRO, further empowers diplomatic missions and consular posts to vigorously promote opportunities for trade and investment in Jamaica. Legislative achievements include: 1. Accession to the Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons as one of the first 50 states required for its entry into force. 2. Accession to the Apostille Convention, which will allow simplified document authentication processes to be implemented. 3. Ratification of the revised Georgetown Agreement for the establishment of a new Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States, OACPS. 4. Conclusion of the new partnership agreement between the OACPS and the European Union, together with its Caribbean Regional Protocol. And 5. Acceptance of the Doha Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol to assist developing countries like Jamaica to access financial assistance to adapt to the impacts of climate change. Legislative priorities for the new fiscal year will include: 1. Further strengthening the legal framework for anti-money laundering and to combat financing of terrorism and the implementation of UN Security Council resolutions. 2. Modernizing monetary penalties in legislation within the remit of government. And 3. Domestic implementation of Part 11 of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea to regulate deep seabed mining. Honorable members, the Judiciary Strategy plan is ushering in transformation in the operations and management of the courts. Despite the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the courts continued to operate effectively, which included hearing matters electronically. Operational changes have resulted in an increase in the number of judgments. By the end of March 2022, there should be no judgment that is outstanding for more than 3 to 6 months at the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal. The government continues a progressive program of justice reform and strengthening delivery of social justice services in the areas of restorative justice, child diversion, and victim services. The government promulgated the Dogs Liability for Attacks Act, which provides for criminal and civil liability for attacks by dogs, and the Authentication Foreign Policy Documents Act, which will facilitate a more simplified process for authenticating local public documents intended for use overseas and foreign documents to be used in Jamaica. For the upcoming fiscal year, the government intends to introduce a mediation bill to enact legislation to: 1. Ratify the United Nations Convention on International Settlement Agreements resulting from mediation, the Singapore Convention on Mediation, and 2. Create a legislative framework for greater use of domestic mediation. The government will also, 1. Amend the Criminal Records Rehabilitation Offenders Act to expand powers of the Criminal Records Rehabilitation of Offenders Board to consider applications for expungement. And 2. The government will repeal the 19th Century Notaries Public Act, replacing it with a modern and more comprehensive legislation. further, the government intends to pilot for enactment the Judicature Parish Courts Amendment Bill, and 2, the Judicature Appellate Jurisdiction Amendment Bill to inter alia grant a limited right of appeal to the prosecution. Honorable members, of great importance is the fact that the first government-owned and operated shelter for victims of gender-based violence was opened in October 2020, and 2 additional properties were purchased during the 2020-2021 financial year to be used as shelters. Embracing the new normal, the government was able to organize and host 3 major virtual events. 1, the Together We Stand telethon, which raised approximately $60 million to purchase personal protective equipment. The staging of the Emancipendence celebration under the theme Resilient and Strong, Let's Celebrate Jamaica 58. And 3, the 15th session of the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage, held virtually for the first time. Participants from almost 150 countries were exposed to our cultural and musical offerings. Jamaica celebrates the 60th anniversary of our independence in 2022. The Secretariat for Special Commemorative Activities has been established to coordinate activities to commemorate our Diamond Jubilee and the UN-declared International Decade of People of African Descent. Progress in legal reform saw the tabling of the Sexual Harassment Prevention Act, which is currently before a joint select committee of Parliament. The proposed amendments to the Domestic Violence Act are being expedited. The amendments to the National Heritage Trust Act are being finalized for submission to the Legislation Committee of Cabinet. These amendments are to protect Jamaica from the illicit trade of our cultural artifacts and provide a more robust regulatory framework for the declaration and preservation of our heritage sites. The Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development and its portfolio agencies and local authorities play a pivotal role in the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management has been charged with the responsibility of the Disaster Risk Management Act, which has formed the basis for the national response. In keeping with ongoing efforts to be sufficiently responsive to ever-changing conditions, amendments will be made to the Disaster Risk Management Act. Through social protection programs and initiatives, several activities were undertaken to care for the vulnerable. Care packages were provided to the homeless, and a special feeding program was initiated to provide at least 2 meals per day to the homeless. The Church Street shelter was open to provide accommodation to over 70 homeless persons in the downtown area of Kingston. Additionally, temporary shelters were established in St. Catherine. Also, in all infirmaries and Golden Age homes, a comprehensive clearing and sanitization exercise was carried out, and buildings were renovated to be used as isolation areas. The National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA, is expanding its fleet capacity to better serve communities island-wide. The government remains committed to improving infrastructure, capacity building, and creating additional employment opportunities to propel economic growth, development, and improve quality of life in rural areas. The legislative priorities for the 2021-2022 fiscal year include 1, the Human Services Bill, 2, the National Solid Waste Amendment Bill, and regulations related to the National Solid Waste. And 3, the Building, Service, and Enforcement of Notices and Orders regulation. Honorable members, in the past year, the government had to take steps to assist the transport sector in the COVID-19 relief effort. License fees were waived and the period of renewal of road license extended. First responders were allowed to ride free on Jamaica Urban Transport Company JUTC and Montego Bay Metro buses between March and September 2020. The procurement of buses for the Jamaica Urban Transit Company is far advanced. The government has been able to maximize on revenues from alumina sales through new legal and marketing structures, which now allow the government to enhance its earnings with respect to its alumina offtake from the Jamalco operation. This follows closely on the heels of the tabling of a new national minerals policy for Jamaica as a white paper. Additionally, the Shipping Amendment Act, which seeks to incorporate the Maritime Labour Convention 2006, was passed. The government intends to focus on the Shipping Pollution Prevention Response Liability and Compensation Bill, as well as the bill to amend the Transport Authority Act. Another key priority for the ministry is the implementation of the new Island Traffic Authority and attendant regulations pursuant to the passing of the Road Traffic Act. Honorable members, social workers were called upon to assist with COVID-19 relief efforts and were on the front line packaging and distributing food packages for persons that were subject to community quarantine measures. A social pension scheme was approved to benefit persons 75 years and older who are now in receipt of a private or public pension, other retirement income, or social protection benefits, and are not within government-owned institutionalized facility. This new program will be implemented in the second quarter of the 2021-22 fiscal year. A special subcommittee of the Labour Advisory Council, LAC, has been established to assess the impact of the pandemic and provide recommendations for labour market resilience. The government remains steadfast and committed to the enactment of the Occupational Safety and Health Bill to protect workers and other persons from harm to their safety, health, and welfare through the elimination or minimization of hazards, serious injury, or risks arising out of or in connection with activities at the workplace. The amendments to the National Insurance Act, National Insurance General Benefit Regulations, and the National Insurance Sugar Workers Transitional Regulations remain legislative priorities. It is anticipated that these amendments will give effect to increases in several benefits under the schemes. Jamaica remains committed to achieving decent wages for all workers, with particular attention paid to the most vulnerable. Accordingly, work is still ongoing on the Minimum Wage Amendment Act. The government has been working assiduously to ensure that the Disabilities Act is brought into effect to promote, protect, and ensure full and equal enjoyment of privileges, interests, benefits by persons with disabilities. Subsidiary legislation is needed to support the Disabilities Act. Consequently, disabilities regulations have been prepared, and it is the intent of the government to table these in the 2021-2022 fiscal year. Honorable members, the road ahead will be a steep incline with many rough patches. However, rising from adversity is nothing new for us. Time and time again, we have demonstrated the ability to recover and overcome. Undoubtedly, we're on the right path. We were on the right path before COVID-19 pandemic. And the dividends of sound economic and social policies have assisted in cushioning the shocks. We are confident that the fundamentals of our economy and government are strong, and we will rebound and rebuild even stronger than before. My fellow Jamaicans, I am optimistic that we will rebuild and recover. However, the pandemic has provided us with the opportunity to build forward. In this COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen firsthand how technology has kept us together despite the distance we must maintain. It has shown us how we can work virtually, how a system of unique identification is important for efficient, transparent, and equitable distribution, the importance of a strong security force to support public order, and how we depend on the efforts of our health professionals and first responders in times of crisis. We must not merely seek to build back what we had. We must embrace the opportunity to build forward to a new future. We must build forward to a digital society, build forward to a smarter society, build forward to an orderly society, a law-upholding and peaceful society. while the COVID-19 pandemic has no doubt dealt a severe blow to our lives and livelihoods, let us as one Jamaica embrace the challenge and the opportunity to build forward stronger and better together.
Luton. You're right. Except the minister. Minister, you stay. You can go. Can I have my agenda, please? Can I have my agenda, please? Senate agenda. Senate meeting now, you have an agenda. Where's your agenda? What is? The agenda. Members, just please return to the seats that you have been assigned so that we don't have to sanitize. Madam Speaker, you are leaving us. This Honorable Senate for Thursday, the 18th of February 2021 is called to order. Statements by ministers, announcements, bills brought from the Honorable House of Representatives, petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions, motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice, motions relating to the sitting of the Senate, motions for leave to introduce bills, the presentation of bills without the leave of the Senate first obtained. Public Business Minister.
Mr. President, it is not intended to do any business today, so it simply falls to me to note the excellent presentation made by His Excellency the Governor General just a few minutes ago, and to note in his closing words where he indicated that we must build forward to a digital society, a smarter society, an orderly, law-upholding and peaceful society, and to recognize the law of this Honourable Chamber and every member of it in making that manifest and whole. So, Mr. President, I do hope that we will have a strong, effective, productive, and collegial legislative year and fiscal year ahead of us. The times are challenging, but I ask that as we proceed in that way, that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed.
Question is that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed. Those in favour? Aye. Against? This Honourable Senate now stands adjourned.
standing in the heart of Jamaica. Spanning from Wakefield Trelawney in the north, as far as Catadupa, St. James in the west, to the Appleton Valley in St. Elizabeth in the south, and stretching to Norwood St. Anne in the east. This is Cockpit Country.